You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Didn't you coach Burt Reynolds?
Yes, I did.
Was he any good?
He was a defensive back.
I know. Was he any good, I said?
103.9 FM LI News Radio presents The Weekend Crunch with Errol Marks and Eric Coleman.
Hello, Long Island, New York, and around the country. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Eric Coleman. Remember, you can go and check us out on our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. This show is brought to you by 103.9, the LI News Radio Network. Also brought to you by New York Sports Scene Magazine and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Well, we finally got him back, ladies and gentlemen. He hasn't been around for the last couple of weeks, maybe because the Jets are lost in translation, but that's a whole nother story. Eric, what's going on, my friends?
Hey, not much, man. Just shucking and driving, chasing these kids around, man, and enjoying life.
Well, I have to say, Halloween is a kid's holiday. I think it was also, I know a lot of people are going to think that I'm not all about the holiday because I think the holiday is made up from all these candy companies, but it's a great holiday. I've been to Massachusetts. I've been to Salem. I was actually going to go to Salem this year, especially for Halloween, because it landed on Saturday. Last year I went to Salem, and I think Halloween was on Thursday. So I never really had the opportunity to really experience the whole weekend crunch of Halloween. But and all in all, it's a great holiday for the kids.
Yeah. You know, it's I don't really care much about the background of it and, you know, where it came from. My kids just get so excited about it. You know, my son's been waking up in the middle of the night asking me if it's Halloween yet so he can wear his Spider-Man outfit and run around and get some candy. So it's all good, man. You know, I try to make the most of it, enjoy this time, and, you know, especially, you know, what we've been going through.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's good to have something to celebrate it for and let the kids have some fun.
Well, I must have my Halloween jitters because I was up really all night trying to figure things out. I don't know where my equilibrium was, but I was pacing. I was really thinking about it. I was telling you off air, I was thinking about drinking some wine to calm myself down. I don't know. You know, you wake up sometimes. What were you saying?
I said, ain't nothing wrong with a little wine in the middle of the night.
Oh, man. If I was drinking.
I always, you know, I'll get a cigar or something and just chill out.
Really? At 3 o'clock in the morning? You do that at 3
not
o'clock?
at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm talking about like at 10.
You'll roll back into bed and your wife will be like, what's that smell?
Yeah. Get the hell out of my bed.
The only time I actually smoke cigars is for a special occasion. Holidays, weddings. I'll smoke a cigar with my buddies, a Cuban cigar. It has to be a Cuban cigar. I'm not going to smoke one of those underthought cigars. I don't know much about cigars. You probably know more than I do. I'm lucky if I know how to cut the damn cigar. I mean, I'm really bad, man. I'm really, really bad. But personally, I'm the life of the party, but you won't see me get drunk, and you won't see a cigar in my mouth only for special occasions. So there you go. I'm excited about Halloween because my nephews and my niece, they love the holiday. They love going trick-or-treating, even though by the time trick-or-treating, you know, you can go trick-or-treating with the kids, I'm not around. So usually I'm at work or doing something with the networks. I'm never around. And I actually love the fact, some of the costumes, I love going to the Halloween parties. The Halloween parties are great. I wish you were out here, man. I'm actually going to a Halloween party tonight. It's actually every year. It's a really good time. This guy throws it in the backyard, and it's really, really fun. So they have so much crazy stuff going on in the backyard.
Well, it's too cold up there to be outside, man.
I know. But you're an ex-football player, man. You played in this weather before.
Hey, all that stuff left me after being in Florida for like 8 months.
Really?
I was up in Jersey last week, and it was probably 50 degrees, and I was dying.
Really?
Yeah, your blood really does thin out. I'm a big believer in that because I was freezing.
I know. My blood does not thin out. I actually love it. I love the cold weather. Everybody that knows me, I talk about it on all my radio shows. I don't like the summer. I don't like the sweat. I don't like the feeling that I have to tear off well, I do like the feeling of tearing off my clothes. I'm not going to lie to you, but you know, I like the swimming pools. I don't like the beach. I was never a beach fan. I don't like sharks. That's something that I'm terrified from. But everything else, I'm not afraid of nothing. I'm only afraid of sharks.
So
and
are you one of those guys that wears shorts in the summer, in the wintertime?
Yes, I'm one of those guys that wear flip-flops when I go get my newspaper. Yeah, it's really, really funny. And I'm one of those guys that you'd be like, what? It's like 14 degrees outside. You have no T-shirt on. You are wearing shorts, and you're wearing flip-flops to get the newspaper. Yeah, you have some sense.
It's funny because when I played, like I was a dude who I never wore sleeves. I took pride in my arms. I always said,
still do.
Work too hard to cover these things up. So, we played in Green Bay one year, and it must have been minus 11 with the wind chill in January, and I didn't have sleeves on. I was fine. It was cold as I don't know what, but you thug it out, and you hit the heated benches when you get off to the sidelines, and you put a big coat on and go back out in the field, but never covered up the guns when I played.
Oh, well, obviously, because you like to show off the guns. And if anybody has not seen his social media, this is a guy that's a workout phenomenon. I love to work out too, but I'm not Eric. I'm not doing 300, 400 burpees in a day. I'm not doing 200 pull-ups. I mean, this guy has his own workout style. And if you guys never check it out, go check him out on Facebook. It's hilarious. Eric Coleman. He is out of control. So I envy you because it doesn't matter, cold, rainy, snowy, you're out there, you're working out, even in Florida or here in New York. I respect that. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, he's coming back, baby. He's coming back. I don't know. Maybe the Browns or maybe even the Jets. The Jets need some help defensively. That's for sure in their secondary. Maybe they bring back Eric instead of paying him with the post-game and pre-game show. They could start paying him some big bucks and coming back and playing strong safety for the New York Jets. What do you think about that, Eric?
Nah, they don't want that. They don't want that. Everybody in the tri-state area would be mad at me.
Well, it's funny because I know you played for the Atlanta Falcons. You know Rodney White. And I'm sure you heard some interesting takes Roddy White said on a radio show this past week. And I respect Roddy White. I think he's one of the most talented wide receivers, secondary wide receivers we've seen in the last 20 years. I think he was a great wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, 5-time Pro Bowler. He never played in a Super Bowl, but the guy has won. He won with Matt Ryan. He's won a lot of games in his career. But he said something very, very interesting to the fans and throughout the country about Trevor Lawrence. And he said that if Trevor Lawrence has any thought of declaring to go into the draft, he shouldn't if the Jets get the number 1 pick. And I understand what he's saying. He thinks the organization is all over the place. He doesn't know if Joe Douglas is the right guy for the job. Adam Gase is a complete catastrophe. This organization hasn't won really since the Rex Ryan era. And they have been one of the worst teams in professional sports in the last 10 years. But for him to take shots at an organization that I understand, Trevor Lawrence, he's going to make his own decision. Him and his family are going to make their own decision at the end of the college season. Either he wins the Heisman Trophy or he wins the national championship. We all know that he's got to make a big decision. Now, we saw what Eli Manning did in 2004. He came out and he decided that he didn't want to play for San Diego. Him and his father decided, Archie and him decided that they didn't fit San Diego's culture. They fit more in New York. So what did they do? What Eli Manning and his father did was practically push themselves to New York. And I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is going to do that. I don't know if he's capable of doing that. This isn't Archie Manning, his coach or his father telling him, you don't fit in the New York culture. You fit better in a smaller city or a better city where they're going to respect you more. I believe that if you're a superstar quarterback or you're a guy that everybody is talking about as the next promising quarterback, the next big superstar in the NFL, why not come to New York, an organization that hasn't had a superstar since Joe Namath, Broadway Joe? Come over here with your California look and come over here and try to win a championship for the New York Jets. If you win a championship here, Eric, you become a god, not only here in New York, but around the country. You look at Stephen A. Smith, you look at Max Kellerman, both guys that are New York fans. He worked in Philadelphia for many, many years with the 76ers, and he's a New York fan, and he's a Giant fan. He's not a Jet fan. And I'm not going to take shots at Stephen A. Smith on this show, even though a lot of people know my thoughts to his opinions towards sports and boxing and everything that he says, where I think he knows nothing about. He knows about basketball. But when it comes to the New York Jets, he can't stand the Jets. He doesn't want the Jets to get somebody like Lawrence. And I know everybody's going to say, look what the Jets did to Sam Darnold. Okay, fine. Sam Darnold hasn't translated into the NFL yet. He's still 23 years old. I still think he's going to be a great quarterback in this league. If it's not for the Jets, it'll be with another organization, the Indianapolis Colts. I could see him playing for. I could see him playing for Chicago or maybe Pittsburgh after Ben Roethlisberger with Juju because they play together at USC. There is an opportunity where the Jets are going to have a good opportunity to make a decision on who they want to stay with, Sam Darnold or Trevor Lawrence if he declares out to the draft. So, Eric, I want to know your opinion with this whole situation. Do you agree with Roddy White? Do you agree that if he has an opportunity to be drafted by the Jets to not go into the draft, play your senior year, stay away from the New York Jets because they're not only going to hurt your future as an NFL quarterback, they might rupture the type of player that you could be in the future in professional football?
No, I mean, I don't agree with Roddy. You know, that's my boy, Hot Rod, and I. We played 3 years together. You know, great dude. You know, but, you know, I disagree with him on this. You know, for Trevor Lawrence, and I'm just looking out for Trevor Lawrence. You know, like there's a lot of money that he will never, that you can't make up. You know, and his clock, once he gets drafted, his clock started, and he starts earning, you know, taking off time for that second contract. And we all know what these second contracts are looking like. And so if Trevor Lawrence can get in the NFL, if he can get in with the organization like the Jets, granted, the Jets are going to have to make a commitment to him. You know, you don't pick a number one overall and not put a supporting cast around them. They're going to have to invest in this team like they haven't done. You know, they have to get offensive line. They have to get some real playmakers. You know, go out and get some big-time free agents. You have to surround this guy with playmakers. Anybody, if it's Sam Darnold, if it's Trevor Lawrence, you've got to give your quarterback an opportunity to thrive. And they failed to do so far. You know, Mekhi Becton is amazing. He's probably one of the best left tackles in the league. You got to continue to build on that. You got to get in some playmakers. Denzel Mims, he showed some nice flashes last week. It was great to see him make some plays, but you need to bring some stars in here around these quarterbacks to give them an opportunity. This league right now, you know, they give a damn about defense. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how good your defense is. You have to put up points. And I say it all the time. You look at the last 4 teams playing in the playoffs. There are 4 amazing quarterbacks who are all pro, you know what I mean, first team, second team quarterbacks. It's all about offense, this league. So you've got to start building this offense up, and you can't come out of games scoring 10, 17 points. So that's what I'll say about that. You know, for Trevor Lawrence, I think it's a fantastic opportunity, you know, to come to New York, to come to a place where if you have the slightest amount of success, you're going to be a star. I mean, and he's already a star, you know, but you give him a huge market, the biggest media market in the world, and you start to turn this thing around. I mean, you write your ticket. You know, the amount of money you can make, the amount of opportunities that you're going to have are endless. So I think it's a great situation for a guy like Trevor Lawrence. If the Jets move in that direction, you know, he's a star. You know, this is a city of stars, so I think he'll fit in well. A
city of stars that never win, and we want to see a team like the Jets actually win a championship. It's been 50 years since the Jets actually won in 1969. So you expect the Jets to pull in somebody like Trevor Lawrence. Now everybody keeps saying,
yeah, but I mean, but Errol, look at Joe Namath. Mm-hmm. Listen, he won over 50 years ago. And he's still a star. He's still on commercials. He still has that mystique. You don't see the starting quarterback of whatever team that won 30 years ago. You don't even know who he is.
Right.
Or you might know who he is, but you're not Joe Namath is still a star. He'll walk into a room and everybody knows who he is. If Trevor Lawrence or if any quarterback wins in New York, it doesn't stop. The amount of money you can make, the stardom that comes with
the endorsements,
it's a lot bigger. You win in New York, it's a really big deal.
And that's my argument too. Why would Trevor Lawrence pass up playing in New York, where if you become a god here, you win a championship, even take the Jets to an AFC title game? Look at Mark Sanchez. Everybody remembers him as the butt fumbling guy. But the 2 years, that back-to-back years, he took the Jets to the AFC title game, he was a star. He was on Dove commercials. He was on hair product commercials. He was all over the place. Everybody thought he was the next big thing. He just didn't fit in after those 2 years with Rex Ryan with the organization. He made a lot of mistakes. Maybe he wasn't the right guy for the position. But Trevor Lawrence is a guy that I believe is going to be a star in this league. You can see he doesn't throw that many interceptions. The guy is accurate as can be. The last accurate quarterback that we've seen come out of the ACC was Russell Wilson. You look what Russell Wilson is doing right now in the NFL. He's the best quarterback in the league. So Trevor Lawrence is one of those guys that he can change an organization around. I do believe he's a great leader. The guy is accurate. He's got a great throwing arm. He's big. He's strong. 6'6", can run a 40 and 4.7, 4.8. I mean, the guy has tremendous athletic ability.
Errol, I hate to sit here and talk about Trevor Lawrence and just neglect Sam Darnold too, because I got to say this because I feel bad for this kid.
So do I.
Sam is. I really, truly, in my heart, believe that he is a very good quarterback. And if you put the right tools around him, he will have a lot of success. And it stinks that you sit here with the guy who was drafted in the top 10. He's had a couple of bad cards, but I mean, I truly do think it. And I know people may be like, "Oh, Eric's just like a homer or whatever," but I think Sam Darnold is a franchise quarterback.
Oh, and hands down.
Listen, it'll be great for Sam, but it sucked to see him go to another team and thrive like Ryan Tannehill is doing, like these other quarterbacks are doing. Because, like, if you imagine you keep Sam Darnold and you put some weapons around him, you put an offensive line, you put some skill players around him, and he starts to thrive. Now you can spend that number one pick on offensive linemen. You could trade down and get a couple of first-round picks. You can have the 2000 draft again where you had 4 first-rounders. There's another element here that we're not looking at as well, because Trevor Lawrence is such a phenomenal name. But, you got a good quarterback. And you got him for cheap right now. And it's disappointing that we can't see who Sam Darnold is because of who's around him.
And also, Trevor Lawrence, you can't pass up on Trevor Lawrence. If you have the number one pick, and I'm sure Joe Douglas is looking at this, and Joe Douglas is right now getting rid of players that he didn't bring to the organization. We all know about Mike McCagnon and some of the draft blunders he's had over the years, but there's a lot of players like Quinnen Williams. You're hearing that the Jets are trying to move Quinnen Williams. I don't know why. He's one of the best defensive linemen in the league. Statistics will show you he's a top 6, top 7 run-stopping defensive lineman. Also, there's so many good wide receivers that are going to be available this offseason. There weren't a lot of wide receivers that were going to be available last year for Joe Douglas to make a move and bring some free agents in. A.J. Green decided to take the franchise tag to stay with the Bengals for $17 million because Joe Burrows wanted to play with him, and Joe Burrows grew up a Cincinnati Bengals fan. And now you're looking at Juju Smith-Schuster available this offseason. You have T.Y. Hilton available this season. Allen Robinson available this offseason. So there are some very, very talented wide receivers that are going to be very much available. So if the Jets decide to keep Sam Darnold and possibly trade the number one pick, they're getting the number one pick. I can't see the Jets winning a game. The only team I could see them beating right now is crazy to say this, is New England, because New England doesn't know who their starting quarterback's going to be. I'm hearing they're talking about possibly trading Cam Newton before the trade deadline, and who they're going to play if it's not Cam Newton, Hoyer or one of those guys. None of those guys are going to be accomplished quarterbacks that can fill in for that position. And the Jets are going to have an opportunity to beat New England not once but twice, because I think New England is trying to lose this year. I really do. I think Bill Belichick has thrown the towels in. I don't believe that he thinks that they're going to make the playoffs this year, as well as a lot of teams. So this offseason is going to be very interesting for Joe Douglas and the New York Jets. The question is, what is Trevor Lawrence going to do after the national title game? The national title game is November 11th. Black Monday is November 3rd or November 4th for coaches. So a lot of people think that Adam Gase is not going to lose his job. It's crazy to say this, but maybe that's the reason why the Jets have decided to hold on to Adam Gase, because they're not going to blame Adam Gase for this horrific season because he hasn't had the talent around him. I don't believe that. And by the way, fans, don't believe what you're hearing through reporters in the press. They're only trying to stir up something with the Jets, because the Jets right now are the clowns of the NFL. And a lot of people think because they're looked at as clowns right now, Trevor Lawrence is going to decide to stay for his senior year and not opt in into the draft because the New York Jets will be getting the number one pick. You saw it with Peyton Manning years and years ago in 98 when Bill Parcells said, I don't know if I'm drafting him at number one. As soon as he heard that, Peyton decided to play his senior year in Tennessee and then obviously went to Indianapolis the year after. And then Eli Manning, the whole situation with Eli Manning in 2004, not wanting to play for San Diego, pushing his way out to New York is another story that Jet fans and fans out there definitely have to look at, because you can't nitpick what Trevor Lawrence is going to do this offseason after the NCAA. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will get into the Jets last week. The Jets had a chance to win. They really did. You were talking about Denzel Mims. We finally got the opportunity to watch Denzel Mims play. I want to know Eric's thoughts of Denzel Mims. Jamison Crowder might miss another week. Where is this team going? And really, I definitely want to get into the Giants conversation because everybody keeps talking about the Jets. The Giants haven't looked good either. When we come back, we will get into the Giants as well here on the Weekend Crunch. Rick. Oh, a little scratching. As you guys know, this is the Weekend Crunch. I'm your host, Errol Marks, and my co-host, Eric Coleman. Only on 103.9, the LI News Radio Network, brought to you by New York Sports Scene Magazine and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Well, I will say this. It is voting week for all you fans out there. So go out there, get your ballots in. Biden, Trump, the House of Representatives. Is it going to be Republican? Is it going to be Democratic? It's going to be very, very interesting. As you guys know, we're not a political show, so we're not going to get into politics. And Eric, I'm not going to ask you who you voted for, but you told me something very, very interesting off air. And you said that you and your wife put in your ballots. And why don't you tell the fans a little bit what happened?
Man, so we're down here in Florida, and so we had I think it was the absentee ballots, and we sent for them. And with our mail, you get a picture of what's in your mailbox. And we got a picture of our ballots and everything. And we went to go pick it up from the mailbox, and they weren't there. And so, my wife was calling, raising all kinds of hell. And, they finally, after 2 weeks, they miraculously showed up. And so we filled out our ballots, sent them in, and we've been calling for the last 3 weeks, and they still haven't received our ballots. So we're going to fly to New York and vote physically and get it done because it is very important to get out there and vote. It's the only way that, we have really to make a change. And, less than the presidential stuff, the local legislation and the local government officials are very important for what happens with our schools, what happens with our neighborhoods. So everybody get out there and vote, man. Go make a change.
Absolutely. You have to go out there and vote. I know a lot of people would think that one little vote is not going to make a difference. Every vote makes a difference. So I don't care if this is a Democratic state or it's a Republican state. You go out there and you vote because your vote can make a change. Your vote can make a difference. So definitely go out there.
Speak your piece. Go
Absolutely.
Speak your piece. Let your voice be heard.
I mean, if you want to dance on a table, go to Eric's house. He'll teach you a little bit of dancing skills. He'll teach you how to do the worm and whatever you want to learn. But go out there and vote. If you're a Trump fan, if you're a Biden fan, or you're just an American that wants to make a difference, go out there and vote. I want to get into the New York Giants. We did talk a little bit about the Jets and the Trevor Lawrence thing. And I watched Thursday Night Football, okay? And the Giants had a chance to win that game. They really did. And I know a lot of people are going to take shots at Evan Ingram because he dropped the ball in the fourth quarter with about 3 minutes left of the game. And the Giants right now, to me, are another team that needs to rebuild. Joe Judge looks like he could be a coach. I think a lot of Giant fans believe that he could be the coach of the future for the Giants. I don't know what we can expect from Joe Judge his second year. But what we did see and what we have seen is growth of their defense. Eric, you're a defensive-minded guy. You played, you were strong safety for the Jets, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Lions. When you look at the Giants' defense, especially what you've seen, the growth of Dexter Lawrence and Kid Carter, all the players that you've seen slowly but surely Gettleman has brought to this organization, what stands out the most about this defense this year?
I mean, they're improving. They don't really have any stars, but at the same time, they're playing solid defense. I would like to, see a little better communication on the back end. They are playing a physical brand of football, but It's tough nowadays. It's tough to play defense. This league is, the way that these offenses are evolving, it's hard for the defense to catch up right now. And typically, the offense moves faster. The defense eventually catches up. They find solutions. But, you look all around the league and I mean, it's a joke. All these points being put up, quarterbacks get the ball with a minute left and they're going down scoring touchdowns. And, you know what I mean? That stuff never really happened. And, for the Giants, they're a young group. I think they're a hungry group, and I think that they have a lot to improve on, obviously, but they're starting to play more disciplined football. You can tell that Joe Judge's way of coaching is starting to resonate with the team. They do look like a team. As bad as things have looked, they do look like they're out there rooting for each other. They're out there but playing together as a team. But, they just have a lot of missing pieces, and it's hard to overcome that.
Eric, I don't understand why nobody is taking shots at the Giants right now. The Giants have one win. They haven't looked good. But why are the New York Jets the laughingstock of New York right now and throughout the country? There are so many teams right now in the NFL that barely has a win. Jacksonville hasn't looked good. They have one win. Why aren't teams and why aren't fans making fun of the Jacksonville Jaguars? And I understand that the Jets have been a clown organization, and I respect the Johnson family because they open up their pockets. I actually stick up for Woody Johnson and Chris Johnson because they're an organization that no matter what, they will open up their pockets and they will spend money for players. They just haven't brought the right players and the right coaches and the right GMs into the organization that has moved the organization forward. It's moved them backwards. But the Giants organization with Joe Judge, he's looked good. Now, the question is he going to make them more advanced next year? You want to see growth of this team. You haven't seen Xavier McKinney this year, the safety that they drafted in the second round, who was a first-round talent. So I'd like to see when that kid comes into the defense, how he fits the defensive culture. And also, the offense. This is a team that has no offensive players. I don't want to hear from Giant fans about Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard, he got a big contract about a year ago. He has not really panned out. He really hasn't. Golden Tate got a huge contract, and I love Golden Tate. I followed him when he played for the Lions. I followed him when he went to Seattle. I love Golden Tate. I love his speed and his ability. I followed him when he played for Notre Dame. The kid is an unbelievable talent, but he's not a kid anymore. He's 32 years old. He's an old man. In football years, that's an old man. They don't have another Odell Beckham. They don't have that other superstar that you can fill in and say, okay, he's going to grow with a guy like Daniel Jones. There is no guy. And I want to hear about some of these fifth round and fourth round picks that they have. And I hear it from Giant fans all the time. The guy that really stands out to me for the Giants defensively is Leonard Williams. The leadership that he brings, the 4-3 defense. And I always said that I believe that Leonard Williams, if the Jets moved to the 4-3 defense with Todd Bowles, he would have fit better in the 4-3 than the 3-4. But absolutely. You see him right now in the 4-3 with the Giants. He's dominating. He's playing very, very well. He's looking like the guy that everybody thought he was going to be in the first round when the Jets got him in the sixth pick, when everybody thought he was the most talented player coming out of the draft. And you're seeing the talent right in front of your eyes. And now it's starting to move towards Dexter Lawrence and Lorenzo Carter. These guys are starting to grow. And when you have leadership like Leonard Williams, who was a leader for the Jets, you have the opportunity to start growing. So I've been very impressed with the defense. The offense, it sometimes looks like it's going to start to figure things out. Daniel Jones is a lot faster than he looks. He really does. He's a mobile quarterback that can move. The funny thing on Thursday Night Football was when he tripped on his feet. I mean, it was just as big a blunder as Mark Sanchez running into his own player's ass. Okay, I thought it was a big meme. Everybody was putting it out there as a meme, as what do they call them, GIFs? So to me, I think Daniel Jones is the future quarterback of this organization. Gettleman is riding on that. And a lot of people trying to compare Daniel Jones, to Sam Darnold. You can't compare a guy like Daniel Jones to a guy like Sam Darnold because, in my eyes, he has better management right now in Gettleman and that organization. Gettleman, I'm not saying Gettleman is better than Joe Douglas. I'm not saying that. But Joe Douglas is a new GM, Eric. He's new. So we don't know what Joe Douglas is going to bring to the table moving forward for the New York Jets. We know what Gettleman has done. We've seen him as the GM for the Carolina Panthers. He took them all the way to the Super Bowl as the GM. And then he came to the Giants trying to rebuild this team from the bottom to the top. He made some mistakes with draft picks like Baker, moving up to get him. This is a team that has some talent, but they're still a growing organization. They're still trying to figure their identity out. So your thoughts to the Giants this season as a whole?
Well, I mean, it's definitely not good. You know what I mean? This is not the way you want to start out any organization. It's tough to get wins. And when you let wins go, like you saw last week, they've had several games that they should have, they could have won. And you have to win those games. It's a fine line between these terrible teams and a really good team. So especially with their division, I'd like to see a little more growth. Obviously, you don't have Saquon Barkley. That's a huge part of your offense. There's a lot of missing pieces talent-wise. But I do think that, it's a joke right now for both teams in New York. It's embarrassing, to be playing at this level. I don't think it ever should get to this. But with that being said, listen, you gotta start somewhere, and they're trying to make it work. And I don't pay as much attention to the Giants as I do the Jets, but it's tough. It's tough when you play in an organization where you're not winning, you're not producing wins. Everybody's uncomfortable, everyone's on edge, and playing in New York, with the media capital of the world, you have to take the good with the bad. So, it's gonna be some heat on them for a while, but ultimately, I think they'll become better because of this. Both
feelings. You played for a New York organization, and you also lost a lot with the New York Jets. But you also won. I'm not gonna take shots at your career because, to me, as a New York Jet, I was a big fan of yours, Eric. I followed you. I loved the strong safety position at the time. Darrelle Revis was a young player. Lavernius Cole. Remember all those players in that team of the Jets. I grew to love the New York Jets in that time because I thought they were the underdog. They were always the underdog at that time. But and it feels like that happens every single year, Eric, that these New York teams are the underdog. I want to see for once where they're the favorites. They're one of the top teams in the AFC or the NFC. That's what I want to see. And is Daniel Jones the future of this organization? I don't know. If they get the number one pick, they're drafting Trevor Lawrence. Whoever gets the number one pick, unless they decide to trade out of that pick and get a slew of draft picks, which the Jets could do, so could the Giants, so can Jacksonville or Atlanta, whoever gets that number one pick, I don't see it happening. He's too good of a player. So the way football is and the way the NFL is starting to go, it's all become offense. So unfortunately, moving forward with both organizations, they're going to have to find their way out of this hole that they really have dug themselves into. And Saquon Barkley, if I were the Giants right now in the offseason, Gettleman needs to look to move him. I know he tore his ACL, and you don't move a guy with an injury, but he's still a young player. He's still a dominant running back in this league. And are you planning to win in the next 3 or 4 years? And if you're not, or you don't see yourself as a winning organization, move Saquon Barkley and start building your draft stock. Because if you're not going to win with him now, you're not going to win with him later. Running backs, they only last in the NFL for 6 or 7 years at best. They're not Adrian Peterson. So I'm very interested to see, moving forward, if Gettleman is the GM, what are they going to do with Saquon Barkley? He's a piece that you could move and get a significant amount back for him. So when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will get into Week 7 and Week 6 blunders, okay? And I will say blunders because there are certain games that really stood out to me, a.k.a. the Dallas Cowboys. When we come back, we will get into that here on the Weekend Crunch. As you guys know, this is the Weekend Crunch. I'm your host, Errol Marks. My co-host, Eric Coleman. Remember, this is played on only one channel, one FM dial, 103.9, the LI News Radio Network, every single Saturday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. New York Eastern Time. Happy Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. From here, from the Weekend Crunch, from the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, from the LI News Radio Network to JVC Broadcasting, we all wish you a very happy Halloween. Brought to you by New York Sports Scene Magazine and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. I'm telling you, Eric, we had a commercial throughout the week on 103.9 about this week's show, and it was hilarious. Absolutely. Speedy, why don't you tell the fans how funny it was?
It was as funny of a promo as you will ever get.
I'm serious. I went all the way to saying that we are the greatest of all time, me and you. So it was really, really funny. What did I call Tom Brady?
I forget. It was so funny, though. Oh, my God.
Baby Brady?
Yeah, something like that. It was hilarious.
It was really, really funny. It was all over 103.9 all week. They were playing it on all their channels. I actually was listening to I think I was listening to 105.3, and I actually heard it on 105.3. It was very funny. It really was. Before we get into Week 7 and Week 8, I do want to get into Week 6 blunder. And I call this Week 6 blunder because I watched the Ravens and Eagles game. I have the NFL package. And what really stood out to me in that game in week number 6 was the Eagles had a chance to win in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes left of the game. And there was just a lot of coaching mistakes by Peterson. And I know a lot of people are taking shots at Carson Wentz. And to me, I don't know if the Eagles are playoff material, but with the NFC East being as bad as it is, they're probably the best team and the most talented team in the NFC East. So what did you think? I know we didn't get you on last week to really know your thoughts. What did you think of that game, and what really stood out to you about the Eagles really choking with 3 minutes left of that game?
Well, I mean, listen, when things are going bad, they go bad, and you know it's tough because you know one mistake here or there, and it gets exposed. You know, I'm trying to think back to what happened at the end of the game.
Well, they were doing a lot of quarterback sneaks in the game. There was no running. They didn't run the ball enough. When you're only down by 2 points in the game, why are you not running the ball, trying to run the clock out? That was a huge problem throughout the fourth quarter that the Eagles had. I don't know. I don't understand why Peterson all of a sudden falls out of the running game. We've seen that with Kyle Shanahan. That cost him the Super Bowl last year. I don't understand why these coaches, they have a chance to win these games. You're up, and you stop running the ball. It doesn't make any sense to me, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of situational football blunders that I've been seeing around the league as far as, you know, not knowing what to do in certain situations and not being educated. And listen, I want to give a little bit of that to the fact that there's no OTAs, there's no mini camps. So that makes it tough. You know, those are times where you can coach situational ball. You know, I know that when Eric Mangini was here with the Jets, we went through a ton of situations. And, you know, a lot of times they would come up in games and everyone would be prepared for them. And I know that's what they do in New England. I know they do that in a lot of successful programs. You see it with the Titans. I mean, Vrabel will throw out a rule and take a penalty here where it stops the clock. And, you know, all of a sudden you're wondering what he's doing. And then you look back at it and you're like, that was masterful. You know, and some of these coaches are on top of these situations. And the others, you know, you're just trying to get your guys lined up in the right position. So, you know, it just depends on what program you come from, you know, how you are able to coach your players to understand these situations, because they do win and lose football games for you. So just being aware of what to do at the end of a game is like, it sounds so easy, but you have to continue to beat it into guys and to take reps and instill it in your team so that it's natural and you don't see these silly mistakes at the end of games.
Week 7, the battle of 5-0 teams with the Steelers and the Titans. To me, what was really impressive about the Steelers in that game is they got an early lead, and even though they let the Titans come back in the game, Derrick Henry was running all over them, beasting all over them, feeding all over them. All in all, their defense really stood tall and won the game. So what stood out to you in that game? And you see Pittsburgh is one of those favorites now in the AFC, a team that I did not believe you did. That I didn't believe that they were going to be a championship competitive team this year. I just thought, being that Ben Roethlisberger coming back from that shoulder injury, he wasn't going to be the same quarterback. We've seen that with Phillip Rivers. We saw that with Eli. We've seen that with quarterbacks coming back with major injuries of that magnitude later in their careers. What did you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers last week?
I loved it. And this is a game that I had circled on my calendar because, you know, I understood that these are two very physical football teams. You know, they take pride in the physicality. They take pride in dominating the line of scrimmage. And, you know, going into this game, I was looking for Pittsburgh to dominate on defense and to slow down Derrick Henry. And they did so. They were very successful in it. And a great way to slow down a running back is to put points on the board. You know, and Pittsburgh did that early. They were able to put points on the board in the first half. They went up 24-7 at halftime, and you know they really had a great game plan. You know, that defense is unbelievable. You know, with T.J. Watt, you know, Cam Hayden, Minkah Fitzpatrick, they have a very good defense. And Mike Tomlin, you know, coaches them to play a physical brand of football, and so does Vrabel. And, you know, I thought the Pittsburgh Steelers had the upper hand in this. And, you know, they've been getting a lot of great play from their perimeter receivers. You know, everyone looks at Juju Smith-Schuster coming into the season as the guy. But little did they know, guys like Eric Ebron, we're going to be playing key roles. Deontay Johnson, we're going to play key roles. Claypool has been balling. You know what I mean? The rookie wide receiver. And so they've got a surrounding cast around them now. And, there's so many weapons. Ben Roethlisberger's healthy. It's tough to match. It's going to be tough because they're a very good football team. But when you look at, the Tennessee Titans, man, they kept fighting. They kept fighting until the end of that game. They had an opportunity to tie it up and force overtime. And, Gostkowski, who never misses these clutch kicks, unfortunately missed the kick. And that's what happens when you get in these tight games sometimes. And Pittsburgh just has a way of winning those games. And when you're undefeated, you're going to have certain games that the luck falls your way. You may, fall into a game here or there. But I think Ryan Tannehill is playing great football right now. I think obviously Derrick Henry's playing great ball. A.J. Brown is a dog outside. I mean, these are two teams that are going to see each other again in the playoffs, and they're going to cause a lot of damage during the regular season.
Did you see Ben Roethlisberger's face when he missed the field goal kick? It was hilarious.
Yeah.
He was so surprised.
Was surprised. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Gostkowski is one of the most clutch kickers in the league. He's been that for years.
For the Patriots.
Yeah, for the Patriots. I mean, he's killed Ben Roethlisberger probably several times. Mm-hmm. And, for him to miss that field goal is very surprising. And he was frustrated with it. I know he's disappointed in the outcome of that one, but that's why the kickers make the big bucks. They got to go in there in the clutch and come through.
How about the Cowboys? I don't know what's going on with the Cowboys. Now they're trying to run Mike McCarthy out after the first year, and I'm talking about the fans. They are absolutely appalled of the play calling for the offense right now. A lot of people are saying that Mike McCarthy should take over the play calling. I don't know what's going on with them. They've got a tremendous amount of offensive talent. Ezekiel Elliott has had a terrible year. CeeDee Lamb could be offensive rookie of the year. You've seen Gallup. You see Amari Cooper. This team is too good not to score and put points up against the Washington football team. I'm very surprised. Jerry Jones has nothing to say about this team and this organization. Now they're trading away pieces, expecting to lose for the rest of the season, trying to get a high draft stock of a player in the first round. I don't know what the Cowboys are going to do moving forward. If you're talking about running Mike McCarthy out as fans right now, being that it's his first year, and I've said this and I'll say it again, within 2 or 3 years, Mike McCarthy will be gone from the Cowboys. I really do believe that. What did you think about last week's blunder of a game?
Man, I mean, it looked like the Cowboys just quit. They're not motivated. They're not playing good football. And when you start losing to a team like Washington in the way that they were losing, it's like, man, what are we doing here? And I always say this, when you have a new coach, the best way to I guess, promote what he's teaching is to go out there and win and to go out there and have results. It's hard to listen to a coach, buy into what they're selling, change your whole outlook on the game and, try to fit, your play into the way that this coach thinks you should go out and do it, and then you go out there and get dominated. That's very frustrating. And when you have guys of, these high skill players like Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, all these guys who have been winning in their careers, and then you come in with a new coach and we're following what you're preaching and it's trash, it's going to lead to a lot of turmoil. And unfortunately, things are unraveling in Dallas right now. I mean, they lost their quarterback. They lost their backup quarterback. I mean, I thought that was disgusting. First of all, the hit that Andy Dalton took when he was sliding, that was disgusting. And what else was disappointing was the fact that nobody was out there fighting for him. I fought guys for much less than hitting my quarterback sliding. There's been times where guys will push a receiver, push a cornerback in the back, and I'm out there scrapping. You're just kind of waiting because that's your teammate. That's your brother out there. And when you see your quarterback go out there and slide and do a regular slide and just get nailed and get knocked out, and he's down there laying and nobody's fighting the dude, that was really disappointing, man. That said something about the chemistry of this team.
What really stuck out to me last week was the Saints, a team that has been fighting injuries all year. They have more injuries than any team in the NFL, and they're still kicking 4-2. They played a Carolina Panther team that was hot, playing good football, and they kept into the game, and they won the close game. That's a heart of a champion. Drew Brees has not had one of those seasons where it really stands out to you. I think this is his last year. If he has any chance of winning a second Super Bowl, it will be now. Michael Thomas needs to come back. He needs to start playing with some assertiveness. This is a problem that we have not seen. Michael Thomas, ever since he got that contract, he hasn't been the same player. Maybe because of the fight that he had in practice and maybe the problems that he's had off the field with Sean Payton. I don't know what it is. And you're hearing stories that Michael Thomas wants out, that he wants to be traded. He's willing to be traded. Prima donna position, I've said this over and over again, the wide receivers in the league. So I was very impressed with the Saints. But do you really believe the Buccaneers are for real? Because they're starting to bring in old players like Antonio Brown. They have Gronk, who looks like he's playing like the old Gronk. Do you really think that this is a team that could really be assertive and be a Super Bowl contending team? I don't. I still think they have a tremendous amount of weaknesses besides their defense. Offensively, as good as the talent that you see on the field, this is still not a full functioning offense. So what do you think about that?
Well, Errol, just to go back on the Saints talk, I do think that this is a very good football team. They did win last week. They're winning games without Michael Thomas, and I do think, to Michael Thomas's defense, a high ankle sprain is no joke. That landed me on injury reserve. I lost 10 games. I broke my leg because of it. It's a bad injury, especially for the receiver position where you have to stop and start so much. It's hard to get back out there. So he's been out there for the last 6 games. Yeah, he got in a fight with his teammate, but he's eligible to play this week, and he can't play because he's still hurt. And, so that's a tough injury to overcome. And, hopefully they'll rest him up. And, when they need him down the stretch, he'll come through like he always does. But, to talk about the Buccaneers, man, I love this team. I'm a big fan of BA. Bruce Arians is one of my favorite coaches. He's one of those guys where you, as a player, you wish you could play for him. Because he got your back as a coach. He's feisty. He has a great attitude, and they're playing good football. And the reason I think this team is for real is because they have a really good defense. Todd Bowles is doing an excellent job with his defense. They got playmakers. They just added They lost Vita Vea, their nose tackle, who's a great player, who's a run stuffer up the middle. And they replace him with Steve McClendon, who's a very, very good player, as Jet fans know. They have a ton of talent on that back end. And then on offense, they just keep adding weapons. And Tom Brady is throwing the ball like in his peak. You know what I mean? Last week, playing against the Raiders, what else could you ask for? 33 for 45, for 369 yards, 4 touchdowns. You're seeing the difference in Tom Brady's presence in New England. Everyone's talking about, New England, they got Cam Newton. They don't have a receiving core. When's the last time Tom Brady had a receiving core in New England? He's never had a good receiving core, except for when Randy Moss was there, maybe Troy Brown. But Tom Brady's been making luxury meals with scraps for years. And he's doing it down in Tampa, and now he has a supporting cast. Chris Godwin, Gronkowski, Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette. They're adding Antonio Brown. This is going to be something special. I do think that Tom Brady and this veteran locker room are going to be able to keep Antonio Brown in check. I think that, having veterans around the team, having a successful team, having good coaches in line helps when you have a player who struggles. You know what I mean? And I haven't heard anything from Antonio Brown in weeks and months. So I think that, and I hope that he got some help mentally, because that's what he really needed. He was lashing out for help. And I think that he got that help. Hopefully he continues to get better and mentally and as a person off the field. And we all know what he can do once he hits that field. So it's going to be trouble for anybody playing the Buccaneers this year.
Those are the games that really stuck out to me for week number 7. Now let's do our picks for week 8. Speedy's going to pick 5 games, and he's going to keep tabs. Right now, I think we're tied.
You're tied, yes. You guys are still tied. Obviously, Eric has been here for a couple weeks, so you guys are still tied. So the first one we'll get into is the debut of Tua Tagovailoa, Rams at the Dolphins.
Eric, go ahead.
I'm going with the Rams in this one. Listen, I was at the Seattle game when Tua played, those couple of snaps. He threw the ball well. He threw it with high velocity. His teammates seemed to be supporting him. So I do expect him to be successful, but this Rams defense is way too fast, so I'm going to go with the Rams.
I'm going to go with the Rams, too. I think the Rams are a legitimate team right now in the NFC. I think they're in the best division in football. I think all 4 teams can make it to the playoffs. The two wild card teams can come out of their division. So I like the Rams. I am not a Jared Goff fan. I'll say that over and over again. But they're playing good offense, and Aaron Donald is a beast. I don't think there's anybody defensively that you can compare and contrast to this guy. As crazy as it may sound, when he's done with his career, we're going to be trying to compare him to Lawrence Taylor. That's the type of player he is. He's been a fantastic player since he's come into the league from Pittsburgh. So definitely the Rams. I'm picking the Rams.
All right. Raiders and Browns, battle of two surprise teams.
Raiders and Browns. Listen, the Browns coming off a huge win. Baker Mayfield's throwing the ball well. But there's just something about this Raiders team that I can't count them out. You know, they're physical. They run the ball well. They're tough on defense. I'm going to go with the Raiders in this one.
I'm going to go with the Raiders. I think the Raiders are the team to beat right now in their division. Besides the Kansas City Chiefs, they've really stood out to me. I think they're going to be a playoff team. They're definitely going to be one of the wild card teams. I love what Derek Carr has done this year with John Gruden. This is his second or third year. He's been a fantastic addition to this team and this organization for the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'm going to go Las Vegas winning the game 18-7.
So maybe the best rivalry in the NFL right now. The Steelers and the Ravens meet for the first time this season.
Ooh, Steelers-Ravens, that's going to be a tough one. Lamar Jackson versus that Steelers defense. Man, that's tough. But you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and go with the Ravens on this one. I like Lamar Jackson. I like Ingram, what they're doing. Actually, I take that back. I'm going with the Steelers. I like the Steelers. I'm riding with the Steelers.
I'm going with the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to give Pittsburgh their first loss of the season. I think that the addition of Ngakwe and some of this defense is starting to figure things out. And everybody keeps forgetting about how good the Ravens are. Everybody keeps talking about Kansas City and Oakland and all the teams that are doing it this year. How about the Ravens that have been doing it for the last 3 years with Lamar Jackson, who was the MVP last year? And I think if he wins the Super Bowl this year with the Ravens, he's done what Patrick Mahomes has done early in his career, win an MVP and win a championship. So I'm going with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in this game.
All right.
Yeah, that's a coin flip right there.
Yeah.
That's a good game.
Saints and Bears. This is another good one.
The Saints and Bears. No Mike Thomas in this one for the Saints, but no offense for the Bears. I'm going to go with the Saints. I think they can outscore them. Drew Brees, he's not the Drew Brees of old, but he still has enough in the tank to put up some points. So I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints.
I am going to go with the Saints too, because as much as I like the Bears this year, the Saints have a lot to prove. And being right now, they're in a division with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got to keep control and keep close with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They don't want them to slowly push forward and win the division and have a home field advantage. The Saints need the home field advantage. They play very well at home. I know there's no crowds, but all in all, I do believe that the Saints are going to be the only challenge in that division against the Buccaneers. So I'm going to take the Saints in that game against Chicago.
All right, last one, 49ers at the Seahawks.
Man, so this is a battle that I've always had because I'm from Northern California originally. I grew up a 49ers fan, but I grew up in Washington State. So these two teams have been like my favorites growing up. And right now, I really do like what I see from the Seahawks. I don't like what I see from their defense, but and I don't know if Carlos Dunlap is going to be able to play. They just traded for him. He's going to be a difference maker if so, but I still think I'm going to go with the Seahawks. Jimmy Garoppolo's been a little inconsistent for me at quarterback. They've had a lot of injuries to the receiving core. So I'm gonna go with the Seahawks after a disappointing loss last week.
Adding Carlos Dunlap really helps their pass rush. This has been a problem. Losing Jadeveon Clowney, not re-signing Jadeveon Clowney has definitely affected their defense. They're one of the worst defenses in the league, but one of the most talented offenses in the league with DK Metcalf and the players that they have over there on the other side of the ball. And Russell Wilson, who I still believe is still the MVP of the NFL this year. So I'm going to go with Seattle. I have been hearing some rumors that J.J. Watt wants out. He wants to have an opportunity in his last year because a lot of people believe he's going to retire after this year to play for a Super Bowl contending team. So I've been hearing that Seattle has been trying to make that move to add J.J. Watt on the other side of the defense. So I'm going to go with Seattle. I think Seattle is one of the most talented teams in the NFL offensively. So I'm going to go with Seattle in that game. Eric, before we let you go, and I know you have to take your kids trick-or-treating, you got to get on the plane for Jets pregame and postgame and CBS at night. By the way, your suits, man, I've always given you a shout-out. I follow you. I'm not only a partner of yours, but I'm a big fan of yours and what you do, not only for the Jets, but the fashion style that you put out there. It's very intriguing. I have a good fashion style, so I know what it takes to go out there and wear a nice blazer, a nice suit, and stand out over there. So have a happy Halloween, my friends.
All right, thank you. You guys be safe out there. Make sure you get out there and vote. Handle your business. God bless, man.
Absolutely. That's Eric Coleman. He's got to go run, take his kids trick-or-treating late at night, and he's got to get on a plane. It's dark right now. He's got to take those kids out for some candy. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into the baseball segment. We're going to talk a little bit about the World Series champions, the LA Dodgers, and one of their players decided after winning the World Series, coming down with COVID-19, to celebrate with his teammates, and the MLB is going to drop the hammer on him and the Dodgers next year. When we come back, we'll get into that here on the Weekend Crunch. As you guys know, this is the Weekend Crunch. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Mr. Eric Coleman. Eric is right now, I guess you could say, trick-or-treating with his wonderful family, his 3 beautiful kids, and his wonderful wife. So I was happy to get him on for the first time in almost 2 weeks for joining us. He's been fantastic for us, and moving forward, he's a big part of the Weekend Crunch. Remember, we are only on 103.9, the LI News Radio Network, every single Saturday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. New York Eastern Time. Remember, you can go to our website, the Worldwide Sports Radio Network website, by going to www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Download the app by going to iOS, which is Apple, WWSRN, or Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Brought to you by New York Sports Scene Magazine and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to get into baseball, and the Dodgers very well deserved. This is an organization that's been fiending for a championship, fiending since 1988. The last time they won a championship, you remember the great pitcher in Oral Hershiser, and that was a great team, but this is a team, and this is an organization that has been fighting. They have one of the best farm systems in all of baseball. They've built that farm system, even with winning over the last couple of years. Magic Johnson and his team of owners have really built this organization ever since they've taken over, not only with superstar players, they're paying players. A guy like Clayton Kershaw, who not only is loved by a lot of people in the country and in professional baseball, this is a guy that has been the best pitcher in the last 20 seasons in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, his numbers, ERA-wise, are just insane when you look at his longevity, 2.43 career ERA, and now finally gets it done in the postseason. Pitched great in both World Series games.
I've been very impressed. When every fan says that this guy can't pitch in the playoffs, he's not a postseason pitcher, well, they're wrong now. 4-1, under 2-point-something ERA. His whip was under 1. I mean, he was fantastic. 4-1, 5 games pitched. He played. He had a great offseason and really great postseason. That's what I meant. A great postseason, and to me, he very well deserved. Now, there were stories coming out, and you know the story. Speedy, why don't you tell the fans on a particular player that came down with COVID-19. He was an ex-Met. That's why I'm going to let you talk about this.
So Justin Turner left Game 6. I believe it was the 6th inning. He left Game 6 because he got a positive COVID-19 test. He went to the locker room, obviously, to quarantine then, but then came out for the celebration when the Dodgers clinched the World Series title without a mask on, took a photo, and celebrated with his team, which, yeah, that's going to get him in a lot of trouble.
MLB protocol is you have to wear a mask. You cannot be around your team if you had COVID-19 for at least 2 weeks. The fact that he was, and I understand you want to celebrate with your team, and I understand this might be a one-time opportunity to do something like that. Well, again, nobody told you to hang out with your friends or your family when this pandemic is going on. And I understand. I don't know if he caught it from his family or he caught it from going out and hanging out at a grocery store. I don't know. But you have to follow protocol. And Rob Manfred, if he doesn't drop the hammer, and he has had a problem dropping the hammer on teams and organizations and players, and you know what I'm talking about, the Houston Astros being one of those organizations, you have to drop the hammer on Turner. Suspend him next year for at least 10 or 12 games. He's a starter. He's making a lot of money without pay. All in all, you have to give the Dodgers a shout out. They've been absolutely incredible all postseason. They were great. Mookie Betts definitely earned his money. He became over the years, we've seen him with the Boston Red Sox. Even when the Boston Red Sox won a World Series championship with him being their best player, he wasn't a big part of that championship team. He played very well, especially in the World Series for the Dodgers. Money well spent, as far as I'm concerned, Speedy.
Yeah, definitely more consistent than he ever was with the Red Sox in the postseason. Even on the runs before that, he was one of their worst players when guys like Ortiz was still there. And now he finally was that consistent superstar player you expect him to be. A lot of people say that he's the second best player in the league after Mike Trout. But again, he had to show it in the postseason, even though he won with the Red Sox. And he did that with his glove. He did that with his bat, not only just hitting home runs, but getting on base, stealing bases.
Do you think he's the second best player in baseball right behind Mike Trout?
I would say so. He means the most well-rounded. He's been consistent, except for 1 year, really, in 2019 last year. He was kind of down, but he's been very consistent. Will it stay that way? I don't know, because I think Ronald Acuna will eventually rise into that because he's a phenomenal talent, and the upside is through the roof with Acuna. But I think right now, just definitively, I would probably say Betts is that second-best player.
Well, consistency. We used to put Aaron Judge there, but Aaron Judge can't stay healthy, and that's a huge problem. Altuve, yes, the cheating Altuve, a guy that has been one of the best players in the league, maybe was because of cheating or stealing signs. I don't know what it is, but he is not the same player he once was a couple of years ago. But all in all, you have to give a congratulations to the Dodger organization, the coaching staff, the ownership. This is very well deserved. This is a team that deserves it. And everybody's going to say they bought the championship. Not necessarily. No. They have the best farm system in baseball.
And they have a lot of guys in their farm system that didn't even play in this series. We look at Gavin Lux, who was the number 2 prospect at the start of the season in baseball. You have a lot of young pitchers that weren't even on the World Series roster. This team has been rich for a long time. And I mentioned this on other shows in the past. They find gems as well. Justin Turner was a utility player for the Mets, and they made him into an all-star type player. Max Muncy was a utility player for Oakland and didn't really get anywhere there. Chris Taylor with Seattle. They find these other guys too and make him work. Kike Hernandez was their homegrown guy, but they found a way that make him work. And all of a sudden you have a team that doesn't really have a weakness. And their bullpen, which was thought of as their weakness in the past, they found random guys that made it work too. We criticized Dave Roberts in the past for his managerial issues in the postseason, but he did a good job with those relief pitchers in the playoffs and didn't really trust all their stars that they usually rely upon.
And Kevin Cash made a huge mistake in game number 6. That cost Tampa an opportunity to win a World Series. Now, I'm not going to take shots at Kevin Cash because I still think he's still a very good manager. He's one of the top managers in baseball. Tampa being that they have the 3rd lowest payroll for teams in the major leagues, I think $35 million. I think Mookie Betts makes more than the whole payroll for Tampa.
Something like that.
The Dodgers being that they have one of the highest payrolls in baseball, it doesn't matter how big your payroll is. It's all about the talent that you have and some of the gems that you can find in free agency or some of the gems that you get in the draft. So Tampa has done that year in and year out, making trades, trading away good players and bringing back prospects, and they've panned out to be superstars. Mm-hmm. So Glass now is a superstar pitcher. There are some gems that they have, and believe it or not, Tampa is on their way up. They're not on their way down. They're a very young team, very talented. They might not be the same team next year, being that they could lose a lot of free agents that are going to be available, and teams are going to look at Tampa like we've seen over the years with the Oakland A's and now the Tampa Bay Rays, 2 teams that have been very, very good regular season teams and that really have fallen off in the playoffs. But Tampa, very well deserved. Kevin Cash, his management team, Tampa Bay ownership, a fantastic season for the Rays.
Yeah, again, that move is always going to be questioned for a while. We've seen the other way around where sometimes they leave their starters in too long, aka with the Mets with Matt Harvey. We've seen that case happen, and it ends up backfiring. Now, again, the Rays, they got there with that system. Like you said, it's a very good system that they made it work. Versatile pitching, very deep with their lineup and with their pitching. I think the biggest problem for the Rays, though, and what held them back was they never really got that consistent small ball offense going like we normally saw for them in the regular season, and you need to do that to do all the little things against the Dodgers. You saw the Dodgers do the little things with stealing bases, getting infield hits, which is not normally like them for considering a high market team. Not that they're not capable of it, but the Rays need to do the little things, and I think that's what held them back.
Well, I will say this. The Mets, I think they're going to have a very happy Halloween because the MLB owners yesterday has said yes to Steve Cohen, Uncle Stevie, taking over for the franchise. That's good news, not only for the New York Met fans, but New York as a whole. Steve Cohen, who's been a Met fan since he was a little boy, grew up in Long Island, a Long Island native. He is now the richest owner in Major League Baseball. And he's going to give the Mets an opportunity to be a competitive team for many, many years to come. We talk about the Wilpons. The Mets were an organization, a laughingstock of the league, because they would not open up their pockets and pay for free agents or overpay for free agents. Now they have an owner that actually is willing to open up his pockets and help this organization win championships. A team that hasn't won a championship, a World Series championship, since 1986. So Steve Cohen, very well deserved. I think the guy is going to do wonders not only for the Mets organization, but for New York fans. He's going to open up jobs. It's a great story right now. And I know you're a Met fan, so how excited are you now that the coupons are out the door?
It's a big deal for the Mets. I mean, really, finally, they don't have to settle for these old, banged-up tier, second, third-tier free agents all the time that don't get overhyped on these guys that just had great seasons and then they always fall off with the Mets or they always get hurt or something like that. And finally, they're going to actually spend like a big market team should spend, and that's the biggest deal. Whether they make the right moves or not will be another question. We've seen teams overpay for guys in the past, and they've really gotten into a cap hell because of that, like the Angels, like the Tigers. So hopefully the Mets don't fall into that, but they finally have a owner that is willing to spend and not settle for these free agents. We'll have to see what they end up doing. It's not the wave of baseball. It's the wave of baseball now is development, and the Mets have done.
He's got the money. He's going to bring in the right guys for the development players.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, from what I've heard, they're doing a good job at actually stressing the analytics side of it now. And, we mentioned Sandy Alderson a lot with the Moneyball system that
he's coming back.
And
he's going to be named the president. That's what I'm hearing.
And I hear there's going to be some other guys that he's going to bring in, too, to help with that kind of system. And that's going to end up working, too. So that's a good thing that Steve Cohen is also doing as well, rather than just saying, all right, we're going to spend a ton of money and hope for the best.
Oh, he's going to do that. You know that. He's going to make trades. I don't think he's going to necessarily bring in free agents, and I'll go back and forth with it. I don't think he's going to overpay for free agents that are players that you're hearing JT Realmuto wants $200 million. I don't know if Steve Cohen is going to pay JT Realmuto, a guy that has hip problems, as you know what Josh was saying last week, and has had problems with his knees moving forward. This kid is 28 years old. He's going to demand $200 million. You don't know how long he's going to be able to play behind the plate. So I don't know if Steve Cohen's going to do a move like that, but I could see a Bauer coming to this organization. I could see him bringing in some good relief pitchers, something that they have lacked over the last couple of years. So I think they're in good hands for the New York Mets, and the Mets organization as a whole are in good hands. I don't know if Sandy Alderson is a good move for them.
I'm worried about that too.
But Sandy Alderson is a guy, he's a very smart guy. He's been very successful as an executive in this league. He's been a part of this organization. They are going to keep certain people still involved with this organization moving forward. I do believe Brodie Van Wagenen is going to be on his way out. I think there's going to be a lot of different moves in the next couple of weeks that you're going to hear now that Cohen's going to take over the team. So it's going to be a very exciting time for Met fans.
Do you think the manager goes too, or do you think it's just Brodie?
I don't know. I think that Steve Cohen's going to have to sit down with the manager and figure out where his head is at and if he fits the mold of this organization moving forward. Steve Cohen is a very smart guy. I think Met fans should really let the guy do what he is good at. He knows how to make money and he knows how to spend money. So this is a guy that has a lot of it. He's now the richest owner in professional baseball. That's crazy to say. He's based here in Long Island. He's made his billions here in Long Island. So he knows what he's doing. And I think Met fans, they're in a very good place. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, me and Speedy are going to get into a very popular subject. We call this segment
Debate Wars.
Here on the Weekend Crunch.
Jones.
Oh! Get it, get it. Happy Halloween, baby. What? Happy Halloween, baby. What? As you guys know, this is the Weekend Crunch, only on 103.9, the LI News Radio Network, brought to you by New York Sports Scene Magazine and the world's wide sports radio network. By the way, guys, If you're not trick-or-treating right now and you're listening to the Weekend Crunch, put on your headset, put your phone in your pocket, pop the app on 103.9, and go trick-or-treating with your family, your kids. Get yourself a lot of candy. A glorious holiday for all the young kids out there. And some people partying. So there's a lot of parties going on tonight. First time in a very long time that Halloween lands on a weekend.
Yeah.
It's definitely a fun time of year. Definitely one of those fun holidays to go out and enjoy yourself.
I know I haven't been able to celebrate as much in recent years because this is the first time it's fallen on a weekend. I know my cousin did something a couple of years ago. Which was
You going
really cool.
trick-or-treating tonight?
I don't know what I'm doing right now. I have to find out when I get back.
Well, I tell you what, you should be the jockstrap man. You're tidy-whities on your head.
Oh, God, we're not doing this
I'm
again.
serious. I think it would fit. We'll call you tidy-whitey man. You wear a cap, a cap and a cape with a T on the back of it. I think it would be really, really funny.
I'll let Bo Smith decide that, dude.
Bowie.
If he approves of it, maybe I'll go for it.
Well, I think we'll call you tidy-whitey man. I think that would be great. What do we call? We call myself the
Urple.
The Urple and the tidy-whitey man. So we'll call it the Urple and tidy-whitey show. You know, that would be good. Anyways, we do this every single week. We usually do this with Eric. We had Josh on last week to do it with us. This is going to be interesting, and I am going to win like I always do against Eric and against Josh, and now the great Speedy Petey.
All right, first one, we'll start in baseball. Better third baseman in his prime, Chipper Jones or Adrian Beltre?
Oh, Chipper Jones, without a doubt. What made Chipper Jones so great is not only he can hit the ball, he always killed the Mets. He's killed a lot of teams. And I remember Chipper Jones because at the time, I never liked the Mets, but I don't hate on the Mets. But look how many home runs he hit in Shea Stadium. He named his son after Shea Stadium, Shea. So that's where he hit his most home runs. So Chipper Jones was a Gold Glove winner. I think he won 9 or 10 Gold Gloves at third base. Fantastic defensive player. He was probably better defensively than he was offensively, as crazy as to say. This is a guy that hit over 400 home runs as a third baseman. Fantastic, fantastic player. One of the greatest third basemen of all time. So I'm going to go with Chipper Big Daddy Jones.
I'm going to go with Adrian Beltre. This one's very close, for sure, because Chipper was an incredible player, as much as I couldn't stand him as a Mets fan.
That's why you didn't pick him.
But, again, Adrian Beltre's longevity has been incredible throughout
Chipper Jones
baseball.
was in the league for a long time.
He was, but Adrian Beltre doing it with many different teams. You look at what he did with the Dodgers as a young player. Even though they didn't get it done in the postseason, he was a phenomenal talent there. Great defensive third baseman as well. One of the best range you ever see at third base in recent memory. And then he went to Texas, really changed that team. They went to 2 World Series when he was there, and he was a big part for them in the postseason as well. The only dud he really had was with the Red Sox, that one big contract he signed there, but that was really it. His longevity, I think, has been very good, very durable for quite a while. I think he only went to the disabled list, I think, for the first time in his career or something in 2015 or 2016. Like, that's incredible to think about it, too, how well he takes care of his body. So that's very close. Adrian Beltre for me, though. Let's go to football now. More impressive longevity, Larry Fitzgerald or Frank Gore?
Oh, Larry Fitzgerald. I'll tell you why. As good as Frank Gore has been in his career, and he's a Hall of Fame running back, statistically one of the top running backs of all time. And I love both of those guys. Good Samaritans, not only in the league, but I love Larry Fitzgerald. Fantastic person on and off the field. Donates a lot of time, not only to the NFL, but to his foundations and the fundraisers and the money that he's raised for the NFL and his foundations has been fantastic. But what he does on the field, he has the greatest hands. He's had more tackles than he has of drops. It's unbelievable. If you look at his statistics, they're fantastic statistics. I mean, he's breaking almost every single record as far as catching the ball, besides Jerry Rice's records of all time. I mean, go back and forth of what you've seen Larry Fitzgerald done on the field. He's never won a Super Bowl. I don't think it will hurt him, but it definitely shows you how important he was to the organization of the Arizona Cardinals and why he is stuck and not really retired all these years. So I'm going to go with Larry Fitz.
I agree with you. I'm going to take Larry Fitzgerald as well. The other thing you look at, too, is he's played with longevity in a scheme where he doesn't really fit anymore. Now, Bruce Arians made him work when he came in as coach with Carson Palmer in 2013. But after that, I mean, probably from 2017 on, he's still been reliable upon in an era where the offenses have really changed in the NFL. It's more of a quickness game, a spacing game. And Larry Fitzgerald, we know him as a possession receiver, too. He was never overly fast. He was never overly, deep threat down the field type of guy. But he was great route runner and physical, and now he still fits, and he's showing it a great longevity. Again, it's harder to do as a running back, so the argument for Gore is definitely fair, but I think the way the game has changed for Fitzgerald really has shown his longevity. And you're right, not winning a Super Bowl hold him against it, just because he was great in every postseason he played in. So he's easily one of the most clutch players at any position of all time.
He's played in a Super Bowl, he just never won one.
Yeah, and he was fantastic in that game, too. I think he had 145 yards or something like that.
Yep.
And had the go-ahead touchdown with 2:40-something to go in that game before the Steelers had their magical drive with the Santonio Holmes touchdown catch. So
Absolutely.
I agree. I'm going to take Fitzgerald as well. Let's go to hockey. Better defenseman in his prime, Zdeno Chara or Shea Weber?
That's a good one. Zdeno Chara, absolutely. Remember, he was drafted by the New York Islanders, the Mike Milbury era, and he decided not to keep him, trade him away. It was the biggest mistake. I think he traded him to Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
For Alexei Yashin, I think he was a part of that trade.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, for the final, 10 or 11 years of his career, he went to Boston and he became the captain and a big part of what that team has done, that Stanley Cup championship run that they made quite a few years ago. So Zdeno Chara, being that he's the biggest and he was the tallest NHL player of all time, and really the speed, the agility, the defensive capability that he could do on the ice, being that he's so tall, a lot of people thought it would slow him down. He was a lot faster than you ever thought he would be. So Zdeno Chara.
I'm going to agree with you on that one, only because, one, of the longevity, and two, Shea Weber, his first couple of years when he went to Montreal.
That can't stay healthy either.
Yeah, the first couple of years he went to Montreal, he had a lot of issues really adjusting, and maybe that ended up being a result of being more, I wouldn't say a product of Nashville's system, but obviously because he was a fantastic player, but Nashville's always done a great job of producing defensemen, whereas, again, when he went over there, he really had trouble. He was good this year, he was very good in the playoffs when Montreal shocked the Penguins, but I think Chara's just been a little more consistent as a whole, big physical guy, one of the hardest slap shots you'll ever see.
Do you think Shane Weber is a Hall of Famer? I don't think he is.
Zdeno
Chara is.
I have to see when he really first started to get going, because he was one of the...
And by the way, Shane Weber's shot is harder.
Oh, I thought Chara had the record, 107 or something like that.
I believe Shane Weber has the hardest shot.
Oh, okay. All right.
In the NHL.
All right, he must have broke it, because I know Chara broke his other record, I think in 2014 or something, one of those All-Star games. So... yeah, I have to see when he started, because when I started watching hockey, he was one of the best defensemen in the league. I don't know how great he was before that. Zdeno Chara is easily a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about
Absolutely.
that.
I don't think Shane Weber is. And by the way, hardest shot I've ever seen was Al McGuinness. So I know obviously numbers don't show that it was, but at the time, his shot was 104, 105 miles per hour. And in those days, the athletic ability some of these kids have and some of these guys have now with the facilities that they have and the training that they have, it's absolutely extraordinary how Al McGuinness actually shot the puck. So
this is fitting for recent baseball. Better pitcher, Clayton Kershaw or John Smoltz?
Wow. I'm going to go with Clayton Kershaw. John Smoltz, he was fantastic in the playoffs. He was unbelievable. He was better than Greg Maddux. He was better than Tom Glavine in the playoffs. Crazy to say when you're trying to compare and contrast those great pitchers that the Atlanta Braves had in those years. But I would go with Clayton Kershaw because Clayton Kershaw did it for almost 20 years. By far, the first 10 years of his career, the best pitcher in baseball, not even close. Dominated. I think he won 3 Cy Youngs in 10 years. He was up for the Cy Young every single year for those 10 years. Fighting with injuries the way he has in the last, I would say, 3-4 years. Still being one of the top pitchers in baseball. Being very big leader for the Dodgers, especially winning a World Series the way he did this year. I'm going to go with Clayton Kershaw, and he proved that he could pitch in the playoffs, being 4-1 with a whip under 1. So I'm going to go with Clayton Kershaw. Yeah,
I agree. I think how he performed in this World Series definitely cemented it. I might have picked him anyway, even if we did this before we knew about the World Series. But the other thing that's a factor in, too, is it's harder for a lefty, really, to get it going. We've seen historically they take a lot longer to develop than righties as a whole. And again, Smoltz, you can argue because he was the closer at times. The only pitcher with, I think, 400 wins and 400 saves in his career. But I think in terms of the overall dominance, he wasn't that super dominant closer. He would have stayed a closer if he was. So I think that ends up making a difference, too, and maybe taking some years away from what Smoltz could have been. Obviously, the better playoff pitcher. But Kershaw is a lefty, what he was able to do. His curveball is, in terms of my generation of baseball, the best pitch I've ever seen. So that has something to do with it as well. Whereas I don't know if Smoltz necessarily has that. Best player of the loaded 2007 NFL draft that includes Calvin Johnson, Joe Thomas, Patrick Willis, Darrelle Revis, Marshawn Lynch, Adrian Peterson, just to name a few.
My God. I grew up a Darrelle Revis fan. but I'm going to go with Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson, being the fact that he was the 8th pick in that draft, if I'm not mistaken, from Minnesota, 7th from Minnesota, being the dominant running back that he was, tearing his ACL and MCL and then coming back within 7 months and being that dominant running back, almost beating Eric Dickerson's record in the regular season that year was a fantastic feat for him. I would go with AP because of the injury coming back the way he did and still being the dominant running back and still being in the league to this day. I mean, the longevity as a running back and being a very good longevity running back in the league. So I'm going to go with AP, but all in all, the dominance of the 6 or 7 year talent that Darrelle Revis was, I would say Darrelle Revis in the 6 or 7 years that he was on top of the world, but AP I would go with.
Interesting. I actually thought you were going to say Darrelle Revis, so that's interesting.
Calvin Johnson, too, 10 years straight with over 1,000 yards and being the best wide receiver in the league, Megatron. So all three of them were talented.
That's weird. That's interesting. I actually thought you were going to pick Revis and I was going to fight, but I'm going to pick Revis now. I'll argue for that. I think those are the most dominant years you'll ever see out of a corner, really ever. I mean, this is a tremendous stretch that he had. We talk about it all the time, the 2009 season where he shut down Calvin Johnson, he shut down Andre Johnson, he shut down Randy Moss, all these talented receivers. And he really changed the game when you look at the shutdown corner and you look at it now. They don't look as much for ball skills or the raw speed anymore like you saw with corners. Now they look for a guy that could lock up one side of the field, and now you're seeing those teams structured that way, and I think a lot of that has to do with Darrelle Revis in terms of the way he changed the game. Now you have kind of a drop-off at the second corner position for a lot of these teams, and a lot of these really good corners and corner prospects right away, and I think that's a lot to do with Darrelle Revis.
When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, the last segment of the show, what do we call this?
Crunch time!
Only on the Weekend Crunch. Happy Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. As you guys know, this is the Weekend Crunch. We are live every single Saturday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. New York Eastern Time, only on 103.9, the LI News Radio Network, brought to you by New York Sports Scene Magazine and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Guys, download our app, the Worldwide Sports Radio app, by going to iOS, which is Apple, WWSRN, that's where you search. And you search WWSRN, or you can go to Android and search Worldwide Sports Radio Network. I am going to be going to a Halloween party tonight. My friend Matt is throwing a great big party in his backyard. He does this every single year. Very excited. I love New York at this time of year. When it's fall, it's even colder than fall weather. I would say it's winter weather. Very, very excited for the holidays coming up. I love Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, everything. I mean, this is the best time of year. As you know, guys, we do this as the last segment. Speedy loves this segment. What do we call this segment?
Crunch time.
It's time for Crunch Time.
Read the time. Gotta see the pitch.
Tua Tagovailoa will throw for 3 or more touchdowns in his debut against the Rams.
I would say less. I do not believe Tua is going to throw more than 2 touchdowns in the game if he's lucky. I do believe Miami is going to run the ball a lot. He's a rookie quarterback, a guy that you have to get in rhythm. And usually a rookie quarterback, you don't throw the ball a lot in his first game. You usually throw it 15, 20 times, make sure that they have a sustainable running game where it can open up the field and open up opportunities and play action to throw the ball. So I'm going to say less than 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think he gets 2. I'm not going to say 3, though. I think it's a hard secondary for him to play right away. The other secondary corners for the Rams after Jalen Ramsey have actually played very well. I know Eric was mentioning that at the start of the season. We weren't sure about Troy Hill and guys like that, but they've played very well. Between that and the pass rush, that's going to be very tough for him to be able to do. I'm going to sell that as well. The Winnipeg Jets will not trade Patrick Laine.
Absolutely going to trade him. You heard throughout the season that they're looking to move him. I know the Islanders are heavily going after him. The question, are they willing to trade one of their big defensive pieces, maybe a Pulak? That's going to be only Lou Lamoriello's decision to make moving forward. But I do believe there are a lot of teams calling up Winnipeg, and they're going to give Patrick Laine out, but they're going to get a significant amount back for him if they're willing to trade him.
Yeah, I agree, because they just need too much on defense, where I think they need to try to gamble on trading some offensive piece, and he's the flashy name. He's the one with all the upside. Teams are going to need offense, and
Just said one, the Islanders.
yeah, so there's going to be a lot of teams very interested in that. I think they will end up getting a good deal. We've seen the Jets fall short on deals in the past, and I don't think they will end up doing so on this one.
I think they're going to get a top defensive player. They're going to get another offensive player out of it with a contract. Obviously, they're going to have to shed some kind of contract because Patrick Laine wants a big contract. So one of these teams are going to have to shed a contract. And if the Islanders were to make the move, they would probably have to trade a Pulak, either an Eberle or Brock Nelson, and another prospect to get this deal done. Because Pulak is a first-line defensive player. He's a very good defensive player.
Kenny Atkinson hired on the Clippers staff. So buy or sell, in the next 2 years, Kenny Atkinson will eventually become their head coach.
I don't know about the Clippers head coach. He's gonna get another head coaching job. I'm very surprised that the Knicks didn't decide to bring him in under Tom Thibodeau. Maybe he works very good with young players. The Knicks have a fantastic amount of good young players on their roster. It made no sense, but again, the Knicks don't make sense half the time. But I think it's a good acquisition, being that he's going to be under Lou. I don't like Lou as a head coach. Everybody knows that. Could he take over the Clippers job? I think he's going to get an offer after this year. After this coming year, I think somebody's going to give him an opportunity. I was very surprised that nobody gave him an opportunity. Maybe there's a lot more with that whole Brooklyn Nets situation than we even know. So I'm going to say he will have a job. I don't know with the Clippers, but I think he will have a job somewhere by next year.
I am actually going to buy that one. I think Steve Ballmer's going to do whatever it takes to make sure Kenny Atkinson is their head coach, because I do eventually think Tyronn Lue will end up crashing and burning. We know he's the product of LeBron James. He was really a puppet his whole career. No matter how talented your team is, you're not going to be able to rely on these puppets as head coaches. It just doesn't work except if you have them. So I don't know if it is this year, but once they lose in the playoffs, or if they lose in the playoffs, I think you're definitely going to see that kind of thing happen. Ohio State, Penn State. Ohio State favored by 11.5. So buy or sell, Penn State will cover the spread.
Penn State will cover the spread. I think the game will be a lot closer than people think, but I think Ohio State is one of those teams that can win a national title. Justin Fields, who I think is going to be a second quarterback this coming draft, I think he's just as talented as Trevor Lawrence. His growth as a football player, moving from Georgia to Ohio State, has been fantastic. I think they will cover the spread.
I do too. I think they're going to play a little better than what they did against Indiana, that controversial loss last week where they were really sloppy. A lot of turnovers in that game. They missed.
There are a lot of teams sloppy with an 8-game
season.
But
I can't see them being that bad 2 weeks in a row. So I think they will hang tough with Ohio State. I think they'll go up early like they usually tend to do, and then they'll kind of fall off later. Ohio State, you saw them start kind of slow last week against Nebraska too, but then they got their groove going in the second half. So I do think Penn State will keep it close, where I can see like a 9 or 10 point margin of victory. So back to football. The Le'Veon Bell revenge game. So he will have 2 touchdowns against the Jets.
No, I don't believe that. I think Le'Veon Bell will touch the ball between 10 and 15 times, but Andy Reid is going to give the ball to their young superstar running back. Le'Veon Bell is the second guy. He's not the first guy anymore. He went to Kansas City to win a championship. He wants to have the best chance to win a championship. He could have went back to Pittsburgh. He could have went anywhere he wanted. He could have went to the Buccaneers like everybody else is doing. But he decided to go to Kansas City. He believes Kansas City has the best chance in his eyes in the AFC to go to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to say he's going to have no touchdowns in the game. He'll have about 60 yards.
I'm going to buy it. I think he's encouraged.
You do realize the Jets' run defense is very good.
Yeah, I'm not judging yards, though. I'm not saying he's going to have 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. I could see him having probably 40-something yards with splitting with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I think Andy Reid is going to give him the ball in the red zone because, one, Clyde Edwards-Helaire being a smaller back, he has had some trouble in the red zone so far this year. And I think they're going to really emphasize that. And, again, the emotional aspect, too. Bell's going to want to stick it to the Jets.
I don't know why he wants to stick it to the Jets. The Jets gave him what he wants.
Modern players now,
it wasn't what Pittsburgh did to him.
Fair enough, but I'm just saying they want to have those kinds of games. They want to show them that they really meant something to those teams because a lot of these players
He meant nothing to the Jets. He did nothing for the Jets.
But, again, that's my point. He's going to want to think he did. So
he thinks, but, again, I don't believe Le'Veon Bell was a good Jet. The 2 years that he was there, he wanted to be a Curtis Martin type of player. Curtis Martin is light years better than him as a player.
So Taylor Hall signs with the Buffalo Sabres. Buy or sell, that makes them a playoff team.
I do buy. As long as they keep this team intact, they have some very talented players on this team. They have one of the best young players in the league. Buffalo is on their way to the playoffs this
I'm
year.
going to sell. I still can't trust that goaltending yet. Whether it's Carter Hutton or Linus Ullmark, that team has had incompetent goaltending since Ryan Miller left. And even though Hall is a talented player, he has been kind of inconsistent year to year.
Doesn't matter. He gives you 25, 30
No.
goals.
I'm not arguing for what he is. I'm saying in terms of the team impact, the value that he'll have to the team. I think you're just adding to an overload. I think it'll help a little bit, but I don't know if it progresses them into a playoff team, especially with the Lightning and the Bruins in that division too. So Trevor Lawrence not going to be playing for Clemson. Buy or sell, they still beat Boston College by over 20 points.
I do not believe they'll beat Boston College by over 20 points, but they're going to beat Boston College. Double digits, definitely. I just don't think over 20 points. But Trevor Lawrence coming down with COVID-19, it could hurt him winning the Heisman Trophy. But I still think right now he's the front runner to get that Heisman. So I do believe Clemson wins for over double digits, but I don't think over 20.
I do. I think Boston College hasn't been a good team for a long time. They're not a football school. Dabo Swinney will still figure out ways to make it work. It'll be a little struggle in the first half, then they'll run away with it in the second half. I'm actually going to buy that. This second World Series title makes Mookie Betts a Hall of Famer if he retires today.
I will sell that. I think another 4 or 5 good seasons. He's got to prove a little bit more than, not that with the World Series, but statistics. He needs the longevity. He needs to hit more home runs. He needs to raise his batting average a little bit more, and he needs to be more consistent. But Mookie Betts is on his way to be a Hall of Famer, no question.
I agree with you. Remember, he started as a backup player on that 2014 Red Sox team and didn't really get it going until later in that season, so he didn't have a full season there. Like I said, he was kind of down in that 2019 season. He was kind of down in that 2016 season after Ortiz retired. He needs a couple more, in my opinion. He's on that path because, like I said, he's very well-rounded, but I don't think he's there quite yet. The Falcons will either deal one of Matt Ryan or Julio Jones at the NFL trade deadline.
I will sell that. That's not going to happen. Julio Jones will be traded in the offseason because I think they could get more back in the offseason than right now during the season. And I think that right now, Atlanta's still trying to win. They're trying to get their record up there. They want to. They still, I believe, still think that they can make the playoffs. I don't believe they could. The NFC is too good. Yeah. So I'm going to sell that. Julio Jones will be traded in the offseason, and depending on where they draft and if they decide to go with a rookie quarterback or they move up to get a Justin Fields, if they do that, I could see Matt Ryan getting traded or dealt in the offseason as well. So I'm going to sell that.
I'm going to sell. They just fired their GM in addition to firing their coach. So you're trusting the ownership or interim GM to try to make big trades with your 2 franchise cornerstones for the last decade or so. I can't see that kind of thing happening. I could see it maybe in the offseason, depending on who their GM is, but I can't see that kind of thing happening.
Look out for the Jets in the offseason. That's a guy that the Jets should definitely look at, and you're not going to have to give up a significant amount for Julio Jones, being that he just signed a contract. You could probably give a third for a Julio Jones and land a Julio Jones, and he would be a great fit if you bring in a Trevor Lawrence or even Sam Darnold if you decide to keep him.
The other weird thing is, have you noticed this? Julio Jones seems like he's been on a snap count this year, too, which is not a good thing to trade him on either.
No, but I think Julio Jones still has a lot left in his gas tank. I just think he needs to go somewhere else where he can help either develop a quarterback or help be the solution to a championship.
Sam Darnold will be dealt at the trade deadline.
No, I'm going to sell that. They're not ready to move on from Sam Darnold. I think they'll wait until the offseason, depending on what Trevor Lawrence does. I do believe there's a very good chance that the Jets keep Sam Darnold and move forward with Sam Darnold. It all depends on coaching and who's the next coach of the Jets and where they see their organization moving forward to be in the next 3 or 4 years. So I'm going to sell that. Sam Darnold will not be traded at the trade deadline.
I agree. I don't think Joe Douglas is going to do anything that impulsive, that rushed. It seems like he's being very strategic with a lot of his moves. If obviously they get the number 1 pick, he'll be traded in the offseason, just like we expect them to if they do end up going for Lawrence, like obviously they should.
Well, that's crunch time, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go, I want to get into the NBA draft, which is 2 weeks away, November 18th. And this is not one of the highly profile drafts that everybody usually talks about. Remember when Porzingis was coming out of the draft with Karl Anthony Towns and Okafor coming from Duke? Everybody was talking about how talented that draft was. Even when Lonzo Ball came out in that draft with Markelle Fultz, who complete one of the biggest busts in NBA history. But LaMelo Ball is a lot better than Alonzo Ball. And I think LaMelo coming out, a lot of people think the Timberwolves, even though they're very interested in a couple of players like Anthony Edwards, I've heard some stories coming out that they like Obi Toppin, and also James Wiseman, a guy that a lot of people think is the most talented player in this year's draft. Yeah. A lot of people believe that LaMelo Ball will go number 1 with the Timberwolves, being that they need a point guard. And I look at the big picture with LaMelo Ball. I think LaMelo Ball is going to be a star in this league. I know the Knicks are very intrigued with him, and they would love to bring him to New York because he's a name, and he's got a lot of talent. He can spread out the offense. He's a good three-point shooter, something that the Knicks have been lacking for the last couple of years. I don't know if the Knicks are willing to go from 8-1 or 8-3. If somehow LaMelo falls to 3 or 4, I could see the Knicks moving up. I could absolutely see that because of the stock of first-round draft picks that they have. But I don't know if I could see LaMelo falling from 1 or 2. I don't know. But it could happen. There are teams that are looking for other positions, but not likely.
Yeah, again, Wiseman and I think Edwards are going to be the two players that if LaMelo were to fall out of those first 2 picks, those would be the 2 players, because Edwards is a very modern fit for today's game where he's a long guy. He could shoot the 3. I know his shooting inefficiency was bad in college, but we said the same thing about Trae Young. We said the same thing with a lot of other players, and the range is great. And Wiseman, he's a fantastic player, obviously unproven because of the whole scandal thing, but he's as well-rounded as it gets. Still has to work a little bit on his perimeter game, but he's as well-rounded as it gets. And Obi Toppin's another one that's very interesting.
A lot of people love the kid
because he had one of the best college seasons of anybody in any conference.
Some people say he's the best prospect in this year's draft.
It's very possible because, again, he's another guy that he's a great passer for a big man. He's one of the best basketball IQs that I've seen in college basketball this season for sure.
If he falls to the Knicks, you see the Knicks draft him?
Yeah, I do. I really think that he would definitely be a valuable piece to that kind of team. He's a smart player, and again, just needs to improve the perimeter shooting because he's a great defender too. Again, he's not a super big man type, but in this NBA, you don't really need that. He's 6'9", 220. You don't really need that kind of thing. That's kind
hopefully
of the tallest guy.
They're comparing his skills to Drew Gooden. Hopefully, he's not as bad as Drew Gooden. I mean, but again, a lot of these analytic-esque kind of analysts don't know what they're talking about. So
that's just disrespectful. I don't know who did that.
A lot of people are saying that the Knicks are interested in this kid, Tyrese
Halliburton, yeah. Iowa State guy that has had trouble with injuries his freshman year, and this year he played very well at the beginning of the season for an Iowa State team that was very bad this year and a good year for the Big 12. But again, as an individual talent, he is very talented, can drive to the hoop very well, good passer. Again, the injuries, though, are a concern, so that's why I think he'll end up falling in the draft ultimately. And I think he'll end up being maybe kind of like that Michael Porter Jr. a couple of years ago. He might be that good value pick for a team that's right on the fringe.
Well, looking at the Knicks, being that the draft, who do you see the Knicks looking at, and who do you think could fall to the Knicks?
It's interesting because Toppin is definitely one of the players that we mentioned. I think another name to watch out for from Memphis is Precious Achiuwa, another big guy, kind of very similar to Toppin, where he's not really a great shooter as a whole, but good passer for a big man, good rebounder, and again, good leadership for a Memphis team that was very good at different points in the year, even without James Wiseman. So he really got a chance to showcase his skills like that too. The other one that's interesting is Cole Anthony because, again, he didn't play much for North Carolina. He got hurt, I think, the 4th, 5th game of the season.
They're not going to draft him at 8.
I mean, he's a boomer bust type of guy. I don't think they will either, but I mean, he's definitely explosive. One of the highest high school recruits ranked wise in the country this year. So it's a boomer bust pick. I could see a team gambling on it. Whether it's the Knicks or not, I'm not sure.
Well, the Knicks have another first-round draft pick. I'm pretty sure they do have another first-round draft pick.
I think they have
from the Clippers.
From the Clippers, yes.
So I don't know if he'll fall to them, but there are players that could be, and I could see the Knicks actually trading both those picks to move up to maybe get LaMelo Ball. I can quite possibly see that. And it all depends on what team is drafting. If it is the Hornets, I don't know if Michael Jordan is going to pass up on a LaMelo Ball if he falls to them. But again, you just never know. And the Knicks have a lot of draft stock. I know they love LaMelo Ball, and I don't know where they're going to see this moving forward in the draft. But I still think that the Knicks could get the guy that they want. It all depends on what they're willing to give up. And how far does he fall? LaMelo could fall past 3. He could.
And the Knicks are not a team right now that has to be position specific like a lot of these other teams. They have young players that are good at different spots. They just need to make sure they fit. RJ Barrett could play in multiple places. Mitchell Robinson, guys like that could play in multiple places. So they don't have to limit themselves to just I have to pick a point guard. I have to pick a big man. There's a lot of variety here for both of those positions, especially with the point guard. It is top heavy. You're right. It's not really a super deep draft.
Usually when this happens, when everybody says it's not a super deep draft, it's a deep draft.
Yeah, everyone,
guys that you wouldn't expect become great NBA players.
Right, like we were saying about the 2017 draft. Everyone expected that to be the biggest deal in the world, and I know we were saying about
Donovan
Fultz.
Mitchell becomes the best player in the draft.
who I didn't like at the time. He had a bad college year at Louisville offensively, and he ends up being the best player in the draft. I mean, who would have thought?
And Donovan Mitchell, who wants out over there in Utah, is another guy that I've been hearing some trade waves for the New York Knicks, who he grew up a Knicks fan and would love to come back home. He's from New Jersey, New Jersey area. So I could see that happening in the near future. We'll see. As a Knicks fan, you have to be encouraged with the new management team and being that Rose is looking at the big picture for the future, not looking to win right now. So Oladipo is another guy that I've been hearing in trade talks for the Knicks. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a very interesting next couple of weeks and the development of where the Knicks go in the draft. That's it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Halloween, guys. Stay safe. Make sure you're watching your kids. Stay away from some of that candy because it could kill you. So happy Halloween. Enjoy your holiday this weekend. Also, go out and vote, ladies and gentlemen, November 3rd for the President of the United States. If you're a Democratic fan or you're interested in the Democratic Party, vote for Biden. If you're a Trump fan or a Republican and you believe in the beliefs that Donald Trump believes in, vote for Trump. Go out and vote, ladies and gentlemen. Don't think that your vote doesn't count. Every vote counts. Next week, we're going to have a great show lined up for you. I'm hoping that we have a special guest. I'm working on one right now. Definitely stay tuned for that. We will have Eric back next week for a full-scale show. Eric had to take his kids trick-or-treating. He's flying out late tonight for the Jets pregame and postgame show tomorrow on ESPN and CBS Late Night with the Jets. So shout out to my partner, Eric Coleman, hardworking man. So, Speedy, do you have anything to say before we go to the fans?
Happy Halloween. Whatever costumes, whatever candy, whatever parties you guys are having tonight.
Tidy Whitey Man for Speedy.
Enjoy. And again, only if Bo Smith approves.
Well, he'll approve. And I will be the Urkel.
And you are the Urkel.
I am the
No doubt
Urkel.
about that.
That's for sure. I am the villain out of the Tidy Whitey Urkel fans. So we'll be back next week on Saturday at 7 p.m. Until then, this is Errol Marks, Speedy Petey, and the Halloween man, Eric. I didn't even ask him what he was going to be for Halloween. I'm sure he's dressing up as something. I don't know. Clint Eastwood? Eric Coleman as Clint Eastwood. We'll be back next week, ladies and gentlemen. Until then, this is the Weekend Crunch saying good night, and we'll talk to you then. Good night, everybody.